Hey, welcome to the DoodleCast. I'm Nicholas Greivel, and today we are in with Matt Parker, Anxiety Animals, and also Kiyakowski Press, Frank Kiyakowski. Both of them are great artists. Both of them are from Denver. If you haven't seen Frank's work, he's been around a while, and you can see it all over town. It's really cool. Very detailed, amazing prints, and his medium's pretty cool. And yeah, Frank, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I guess I'd call myself the father of the cone cuts, and so it's just a relief template. So this is literally a traffic cone. They're the same as a wood or lino cut in the way they look, the relief prints. So that really is a historic thing more, with woodcuts or lino cuts. Those have been around for woodcuts anyway, have been around for centuries. So. Yeah.
Well, it's like I was somebody was asking me about your prints and like how you made them, and I was like, well, this is how people have made prints for a very long time, but it's just with like a newer medium, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and printmaking has never gone completely under, but it is very obsolete compared to 3D printing and the modern technologies. And there's something to be said for for everything. But certainly there's a lot of people that still do printmaking.
It's cool.
Lithography, relief prints, and I'm pretty basic as a printmaker. Like, I'm not really a techie. Whereas if you're doing like lithographs or editions, it's a lot more of a technical process.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do printmaking, but I mean, I'm mostly like a diazo type guy.
What's diazo type?
It's like a screen printing method. It's the one where you like shoot the photo emulsion of like whatever your design is for each color layer. But I've played with relief print a little bit because it's pretty fun. And I've actually even dabbled in. I tried a cone cut a couple times.
All right,
it's pretty cool. Yeah,
I remember you did a cone cut in my car and you cut the shit out of yourself, and we had to stop for
we were like driving around, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can do this while we drive."
Well, the wounds are part of it, so And I like cutting myself every now and then.
Yeah, we do this for life.
Drawing a little blood. It can be painful, though, for sure, because the tools will have all that gnarly, just sweat grind and materials from whatever medium you're cutting in, whether it's wood, traffic cone, lino cut.
Definitely, man. It's, it's all part of the process. Well, today our theme is reclaimed medium. So it's pretty fitting. And really, we're going to be talking about it, in the physical sense, but I kind of want to also get into the idea of what is it to reclaim something and like make it. Some people could say it's their approach to style, making it your own. But so since we've kind of talked about it a little bit, really. Because, I mean, you just said, but what do you really like to reclaim? And, I mean, this can also be, like, the themes in your art, because that's something that I've always noticed in your art, is it kind of touches on that theme, too.
I mean, I'm a dumpster diver, and I grew up dumpster diving, and so it seemed like a lot of the stuff I would find in the trash, I could use, whether it was clothing or furniture, glasses, silverware. And it often means, petty theft, too.
It's weird, right?
But it, if it's in the garbage, it's kind of just up for grabs, and nobody's going to be like, oh, that's my garbage. Give me that back.
Actually, in this day and age, you'd be surprised.
I'm sure, there's probably,
hipsters.
Yeah, well, in general, But reclaiming specifically, like, as a printer, it's definitely about materials to press prints on, and if it's free, you know, I just go gaga on it if I don't have to buy it.
Definitely.
And so one of my favorite areas to reclaim is the architect blueprints, and so you can kind of dig through recycle bins, and there's some I just know, you know, they'll have their blueprints in there week in, week out, and I kind of feel a little shady being on the outside. Like you'll see the guys coming out, you know, just to smoke break, or, you know, they'll be like, what's this guy doing? You know, sticking through our secretive plans and stuff like that. And it's literally just that, you know, it's schematics of buildings that usually were built probably 5 to 10 years back, but sometimes you'll come across some pretty modern stuff that's being built, you know, within the last year or two. So
that's cool.
So with all the development, that's been sort of the weird, what would you call it, cousin of it, is that they'll throw out their, you know, their schematics, and certainly for me it's a gold mine, so that's a great thing that, you know, I can reclaim.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually really enjoyed that, because it's just like, it is very interesting, you know, because a lot of your art ends up on buildings, you know. It'll be interesting to see if something on a blueprint ends up on the same building, you know.
It'd be fun to, like, plan something like that, you know, especially if it were sort of, you know, a building that had, like, a lot of security, or for whatever reason, you know, it's tougher to execute, say, a wheat paste on it, around it. And certainly, you know, with the reclaimed things, the iconography, too, is another thing that, with all the development, you can't help but pay attention to how vertical some things have gotten. And so the crane has come up a lot. And then, in general, the traffic cone being usually at the base of, you know, the development. So they kind of go hand in hand a lot of the time. And they've been in Denver forever. You know, Denver, for the most part, has always had growth, you know. I think it's just gotten a lot more extreme. Exactly.
Actually, an interesting tidbit from somebody I was talking to the other day, and what he was saying is a lot of the growth in Denver is actually attributed to the marijuana industry, because you have these places that have, you know, $2 billion in revenue a year just in Colorado, but you can't keep that money in a federally insured bank. So what do? You launder it through developing property and selling that property, and then put it into the bank. So, like, a lot of these, like, modern developments and gentrified neighborhoods are actually coming from the marijuana industry, buying up properties, making cheap, expensive, modern houses, and then laundering that into the bank.
Which is a weird little monopoly to run.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah.
No, it's always kind of interesting thinking about it, you know, being from this city. And I mean, it's not really anything special.
It's not.
It's just America, you know, but
it's kind of like alcohol, you know.
It's just like, well, you know what you're getting here, you know.
In a lot of ways, Denver, I guess, like a Vegas, you got the hype of the herb, and then you get the lemons that they're either visiting or, you know, they've moved here. And so sometimes when you hear some of the reasoning behind it, and it is specific to, oh, well, you know, I can smoke weed here, you know, and that specifically comes up, I'm just like, no, not this cliche, not in my city. So I'll kind of have a tendency to, you know, almost get mean in a way, toward...
I do it too.
It's like, there's more to my city, thank you very much.
We have a little more than just that.
I think what bothers me more, honestly, is people moving here for the nature and then just treating it like garbage.
Yeah.
That's the weird one. Like
I'd love to hike, and then they don't follow, like, the fucking guidelines, and that's why, like, Hayne Lake was closed and everything. There's actually a great blog I want to do a shout out to on Instagram. It's called trailtrash.co, and it's just pictures of people being shamed for not following guidelines of, like, basic decency in nature. It's actually great. Please check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because...
Oh, and it's on Instagram. That's
when we're talking about this subject, it's really easy to view these things from, like, a kind of xenophobic perspective.
Yeah.
But for me, I like to think of it more as, like, contribution. Like, if somebody comes here and is contributing and not just, like, I don't even know what the word is to describe the scenario, but I have no problems,
Yeah. And I think there are so many people that move here that probably have good intentions, but you can't really get past, just how radically things and how quickly things are changing. So that in itself comes across as pretty hostile. And in a way, that's the history of humanity to some extent. And certainly Denver's own history is tied into, taking the natives' land and so forth. And, well, what do you do 200 to 300 years after the fact, and we're still coping with it.
It's like, why is there the Bill Evans statue on the Capitol still,
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting thinking about it, but, it's a dark web, you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah.
But, so, wow, that was cool, guys. Matt, how this goes. I'm asking you the same question. What do you personally reclaim, either in your art or your day-to-day life?
In my art, I reclaim the same characters all the time.
Yeah.
If you've seen my blog, Anxiety Animals, I'll show you. I've got these bears.
Yeah.
That I draw. These bears are in bondage right now. That was my Father's Day post. It says, "Who's your daddy?" I use a lot of the same recurring characters, cartoon-wise. And that's just the way that I reclaim it. It adds a little bit of consistency for me, too, which is nice. So I don't always feel the pressure to, like, create something new every time, which I guess is kind of lazy in a way. But in another way, I think it's nice because I can take one thing and do something different with it every time.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's the fun part and where you can really get creative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, there's no problem with pattern and repetition.
Yeah, there's no problem with it. I think when you get stuck doing that, then it can come across as lazy. Whether or not it is or not, that's up for you to decide, because I'm not going to judge your work ethic.
Yeah.
But, like, sometimes I really struggle with coming up with new things, but if I can just draw a bear in bondage and write "Who's your daddy" on it, then, like, that's a great Father's Day post.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Take it back to somebody else now.
Yeah. Well, it kind of segues into my next question, which is, like, kind of moving beyond this idea of, like, oh, so what do you do? But coming back to you, Frank, what do you want to reclaim? I know there's a lot of things, so it's a very open-ended question.
I think on a personal level, there's this whole diabetic species, what are we? And so there's not really a conclusive kind of a thing on it. It's been in the works, a long time, but specifically post-insulin, which is the era we're in. And so some of it's based on, like, cultural studies that attribute the discovery of insulin into transforming the disease rather from an acute one into a chronic one. And so with that, when I was diagnosed, I know they were like, well, you're not going to be 40, and you're going to go blind. And, they were doing a lot of scare tactics at the time. And they were really true, actually. They weren't like, they were being dead honest about, the complications. And so with that, my statements alone aren't enough. You need a full pool of type 1 diabetics specifically to draw what that culture is and everything. And so it does involve a lot of like syringes and blood tests and the healthcare system. And so that's something that you don't claim. You don't, it's a very economic and very business kind of an issue. And so with that, my hope for my work anyhow, specific to diabetes, is that it does give some statement or opinion, however subjective that is. And it is subjective, based on people I've interacted with, worked with, interviewed, and so forth on the topic of the disease.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things with health, it's really hard to get a community together and have people openly talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm always really drawn to that, because I think it's pretty important, people's well-being, I guess,
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you're doing that. I really like the concept of insulin uprising, and it is really interesting. Because it's like, I think we were talking about this earlier, but kind of how people view your work and some of the questions you get. It's kind of interesting, too, Because it's like, how do you, break past that?
Yeah, and actually the character I'm drawing, just in the limited time I had to share with him, he creeped me out. He came up to me while I was pedicabbing. He's like, oh, I've been looking all over for you. And he's on a bicycle, and he's extremely, mobile and able-bodied. I'm like, oh. And so right away I'm doing the whole, well, what do you want from me? What do you want? And so I don't know the entire story behind the guy, but I dubbed him Junkie Joe Reno. Yeah. And the reason being is we got in this discussion about a wheat paste he had seen on a dumpster, more than likely, and it had, I'm guessing, syringes. I'm trying to remember which one he had seen, but in any event, it was super creepy. He's got his good for him, his clean needles, which actually I'm a big proponent of, needle exchange. You don't want people to get HIV or Hep C or bacterial infections due to not having clean syringes. So his response isn't unusual, because reality is there is a big heroin issue, worldwide. And the other reality is that the junkies outnumber the type 1 diabetics. Yeah. So you're likelier to encounter somebody that, from the standpoint of the syringe, is going to, see it from a junkie's perspective. And actually, I understand their perspective, because, the syringe is a very stigmatized object.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, because it's not a new invention.
No.
It's not like people are foreign to it. We've been using syringes for more than a century. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, since the 17th century.
Yeah. But the modern clean hypodermic,
Oh, yeah.
But, it is really interesting, the stigma behind it.
Mm-hmm. And it's a powerful thing. A very kind of filthy thing for sure. I personally understand why a person would want to have certain things hanging on the wall, So, and I do more than just syringes for sure, but I do the lullabies, I do the valentines, I do things that you could give to your son or daughter or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, so.
Well, I mean, a lot of your work is caricature too, to a certain extent, so it's just funny, like, what people are drawn to, Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting too, because you kind of you have a hustle with it too,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're definitely aware of like who is looking for your artwork, and it is a pretty diverse group of people, it seems.
Yeah, and with that, that's due to the street, I remember initially I had I think all artists are going to have at times hostile interactions by throwing yourself out there, and then there's a lot of positive stuff, of course, but sometimes the hostility specific to like the 16th Street Mall, and I'll still see visual artists out there trying to hustle their art, and there will be, well, you can't be here, this is an ordinance, you cannot sell merchandise on our city streets, and then you find the official way that you can get a permit and all that, and there's a ton of blue tape,
Yeah.
And so even to look legit, you have to go through the official authorities, and then still you're likely going to get your ass handed to you financially.
Yeah.
So it's a rough thing. It's a nice challenge, though. I mean, I like challenges, so, and I like to see people trying to do stuff out there.
Yeah.
You want to see them out there busking. You want to see them out there developing and interacting and not getting shut down.
It's kind of like the bullshit, kind of like we support arts and culture, but only within this like certain vein.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what the city's up to.
Like,
it's kind of a weird thing to like be like, we like see ourselves as like an art hub of the West, and then when people actually start creating things, they put blue tape up for it, because everybody's got to get started somehow, and if people are out creating something, that's not something that you should want to take away. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know what that little caveat was. It wasn't important, but I just wanted to say it, and I said it. So,
Yeah, Matt.
yeah.
No, it's a good point, because I think the second you qualify something like that, especially with art, where it's like, oh, this person is doing it in this method, and you just write off the artist and art because of the method, I think that's kind of, you're gonna miss out on something, There's
I'm gonna call it the Boulder attitude.
Ooh. We might be getting a little Denver-y in here today, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's because there's like a difference between, you can be irreverent but totally respectful at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And you can also be totally reverent and very disrespectful. And it's I think that's kind of, I always make these weird definitions, but that's kind of what that dynamic is about to me, is that choosing what you pay reverence to, I don't think it should necessarily be a social decision, It's personal. So it's like really whatever speaks to you. And I mean, I like to walk everywhere, I really enjoy it. I like seeing things, having the time to like stop and talk to people. But I do recognize that that's not everybody, and that's cool.
And I think language and art are tough mixes, because language is very abstract, and and I think in interacting with other visual artists, I personally have to see the work, even if I don't see it, I'm like, well, why do you want why do you want my input or feedback? And sometimes it's just I'm not in a mode of being a critic necessarily, because I'll always respect work ethic, and how a person's developing their work, and that should always, to me, be moving forward. And if you get criticism or you get shut down by the petty officials, then all of a sudden it stops. It sort of curtails the forward motion of what you want to keep being in.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, it's like you're developing something that you're making from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is developing yourself, But
there's no getting around. You still do have to throw yourself out there.
Yeah.
And that's sort of not always a comfortable space to be in.
Yeah, it's tricky, and it's time consuming. It takes energy, Like, you have to be around people, you have to interact with them,
Mm-hmm.
you have to, and actually take something in from it.
Yeah.
Which is, that's something I think everybody learns on their own time, too. Because it's like, I don't know, a lot of people get discouraged from critical looks at things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one of those weirdos where I kind of crave it, to be honest. Like, I'm like, please, tell me, criticize it. But there is, a very fine line between, supporting somebody and just, enabling them,
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think one of the best ways to give criticism, and I know this sounds really stupid and corporate, and I was talking to you about this one time, is the criticism sandwich. Say one nice thing, say one criticism, say another nice thing.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, hey, you're really good at doing these two things. I know you probably already know that, but you're good at it. Here's one thing that you could work on,
Yeah.
And that's an easy way not to offend people, but still be like, hey, try working on this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm going to answer the question that I asked both of you guys, but kind of what I think of repurposing is the way we interact with each other. That's kind of what I'm interested in doing, because I think a lot of that is just generated from spaces of fear and just not knowing what other people are doing and seeing it, But I think if people can just let go and do that, it'll be really cool for them and everybody else,
Yeah.
Is that through kind of dialogue and then creating venues to kind of interact with other people, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because it's there's no shortage of galleries. You can go meet artists and check out their work, There's tons of places for that. But honestly, one of the things that's starting to be sort of lacking in Denver right now are studio spaces and places where you can go hang out with people as they're making the art, as an artist. Because I used to have a lot of access to that, and it was really beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's something that I would personally like to see more of, so it's definitely a little goal. Because you can see somebody's work and talk to them about it, but it doesn't really say anything about process and how it relates to them,
Mm-hmm.
You gotta see to believe.
Right.
And I know for me, I have to get people in the context. It's selfish, but I like to get them in the context of my own artistic agenda. And a lot of the time, the only way to do that is musicians can pull it off because it's pretty plain and simple. You're going to hear them performing and you're seeing them and all that. So on an artist venue, that's what you get when you kind of have stuff out in the public venue. And so with that, if I can cut live and all that, it's often the case that a person will come upon me in that context. And even if they don't interact with me, which is actually a good thing, because I'm so focused, they still sort of see that anomaly, the same as they'd hear the musician, the busker playing on the street, and visually see the person playing a harp or a fiddle or whatever. But it does, I think I kind of verged from what I started on, but it gets a conversation. It claims that conversation if they want to go that space. And sometimes they're very good interactions, as was the case yesterday. A woman came up to me, "Oh, what are you doing?" You know, and I went right into hustle mode. "Well, you want to buy something?" And it turned out that she had like parents who were visual artists, and so her just knee-jerk response was, "Well, I'm gonna buy something from you," and I was pushing it. But in the end, it was a positive kind of an interaction for sure. And sometimes if I don't sell something, I can't take that personally. You know, I gotta be like, "Well, that was 5 minutes that you can't have back," and and I gotta be okay with that sometimes. That a lot of the conversations out there aren't gonna, you know, necessarily formulate into a value kind of a place, because that's tough. You do have to survive as a visual artist, and for me personally, it's not through selling art for sure, and I'm all right with that. Yeah, you know, but it is great, you know, to be like, "Oh yeah," you know, pitch a $10 print. She's like, "Well, here's 20," and I'm like, "Well, you need change." "Oh no," you know, and she overpaid in that instance, and it wasn't like $100 sale or anything, but still, it's like,
I mean, it's hard.
$20, yes.
The value's subjective.
Yeah, but it was nice, you know. So, and those kind of instances are out there only if you do throw yourself out there. You know, if you reclaim the space to do art, and that does take place for me mostly on the streets. You know? Yeah,
which is really cool.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's frustrating sometimes. You're like, ah! Sometimes you get kind of mad about certain things.
Yeah.
Junkie Joe Reno.
Yeah.
He's like, "No, I'm not going to buy anything from you." And I start lecturing him. "Well, you got your Narcan, don't you?" And he had syringes on him, so I kind of took it to be this scenario that, if he's going to OD on, you know, on his opiates, he has the proper treatment. As long as somebody's with him, you know, they'll revive him.
Right. Which is good.
Yeah. Hopefully.
You know? Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's definitely better than ODing.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, used to be significantly more common, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing about it is, I deliberately was like, "Well, you've got to give me something, Joe." And in this instance, it was his photographs. So I literally, you know, photographed him very, and then he became a character, you know, or a caricature, you know, of somebody I interacted with. And initially, it was creepy. I mean, he's a creep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like
not in a bad way.
Yeah, it's just like when somebody's talking to you for the wrong reason, you know.
Well,
always,
it was kind of for the right reason for him, you know.
Yeah.
It was one of those instances where we're actually, you know, I was like, "Well, this guy's not that weird," but at the same time, he's pretty mobile. And initially, like, "Well, what do you want?" So, and actually, nobody's harmed me for the most part. There was a very explosive scenario at an apartment I used to live at, and actually a guy I encountered about a month back, he had witnessed it, and it was actually somebody just coming out and, "Get your shit out of here!" And I had like a kind of a garage sale thing going on, and a guy just kind of went off on me. You know, even though I rented in that building, and then later on, "My mother just died." He's yelling all these things at me, and to be honest with you, I didn't know what to do. It was on the verge of violence. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, I was trying to like communicate, and there was just no end to it. He wanted me physically out of, where I was at, which was a sidewalk lawn. It was actually the lawn of a rental, apartment building. So,
yeah.
But that's sort of just, a rare incident.
Yeah, humans are funny, right?
Yeah.
Most definitely.
And I'm a weirdo, too.
Yeah, me too.
I can get pretty weird on people sometimes.
So yeah, these drawings are from a book of poetry that I really enjoyed. And I'm not copying verbatim, I'm copying like the shape and form. Because I wanted to kind of repurpose these images that I really liked. Just while we got a little time, because we've all been kind of getting in pretty deep with what we're drawing. Matt's sex dungeon is looking great.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, so once again, there's Autonomous coming up at Cabal Gallery.
I'm entering into it. Yes. I'm entering a sex robot. I guess I've got sex on the brain today.
Yes.
The boobs.
And you can submit by July 6th, so that's coming up pretty soon. The deadline's coming, and the opening of the show is going to be July 15th. Submit digitally, and again, by July 6th. I'm assuming by midnight. And then one of the other things I wanted to mention, coming up this weekend on the 29th, there's a pretty cool show happening at Larimer Lounge. You can see Sir Els and Kayla Marquis. They're always great. And yeah, just now that we got that out of the way, those are a couple cool events. I got a couple more for later. I got like a totally abstract, just absolutely stoner question. So I apologize in advance. But, because we've kind of touched on this, but I'm getting to a point, and it's a pretty fun one. Why bother taking it upon yourself to reclaim things? And that's open to both of you guys.
I think it's important to take it upon yourself because it's kind of like a mass effect kind of thing. If nobody does it, nobody does it. But if one person does it, everybody does it.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, and I'm not necessarily talking in the sense of, like, artistic expression, although this could be applied to it.
Yeah.
But more in a sense of, like, politically, like, reclaiming, like, I don't know.
Yeah, what the people need.
What the people need, like, reclaiming, like, I don't know. I'm a Marxist, some sort of commie son of a bitch. And I think, like, that's part of the problem. I know this is getting political and not really related to art, but you can also relate this to art. Yeah. But, you know, most people, like, look at the current state of, like, where we're at economically and government-wise in this country, and they think, like, hey, I'm doing all right. It doesn't matter for me. Like, people don't necessarily think if something isn't affecting them, it's not affecting other people. And it's one of those things where if everybody gets together and starts recognizing the problem and being less complacent, we can all come together and reclaim kind of what we need.
Yeah.
This is kind of a ramble. I'm tired.
Oh, hey, no worries.
But, like, it's all about, like, coming together as a community and reclaiming things for the community and stuff like that. Same with, like, dumpster diving. That wasn't really a thing 20 years ago. I mean, it was with certain people, but, like, now people are fucking going to Whole Foods and taking the old produce. Yeah. Which is, like, it's a thing, which is cool, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of become like almost like a joke in and of itself in a way. But in another way, like somebody started doing it and everybody started doing it, and it's kind of a cool community built around it.
Well, it's like, culture is what we add on to each other's ideas.
Exactly. Yes, thank you.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, so when it comes to repurposing stuff, I mean, we're just kind of adding on to each other's repurposing and like trying new shit, doing new shit.
Yeah.
Let's be fucking new, everybody.
Yeah.
Sparkly.
Well, and one of the things is, because we kind of talked about print, and we sort of touched on this like way back in the beginning, but one of these like ideas that I've kind of come to grips with is this idea that like outdated technology usually gets relegated for the use in art. Like, that's pretty much what printmaking is. Mm-hmm. Like, it used to be something that was like a commonplace part of society that people interacted with very regularly, which they don't anymore. And it's kind of interesting to think about, is that like literally the pieces of our culture are repurposed. We take the archaic and we find a new use for it, which is always cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a few friends who use the obsolete type of stuff, and it's not always cheap, or like I can think of my filmmaker friend, but he'll literally be shooting with a Super 8 camera.
Oh yeah, those are expensive now, and then you have to develop the film, which is a huge cost.
Yeah, and even like VHS, and but with that, it is sort of reclaiming a technology that had gone to shit for a while. It just wasn't.
There's also the thing with, like, we can reclaim those technologies in a different way. I know there's, like, apps on your phone where you can turn your camera into a VHS camera. So it's, like, almost like repurposing that for a new generation to experience it. Because, like, let's face it, somebody that's 16 or 18 right now probably didn't own fucking VHSs growing up.
Yeah.
But they have a smartphone, and that's, like, a way to expose them to that kind of, like, medium of film. Like, it's like, it's a cool look. Like, I mean, it's not, like, great quality, but it's a cool look, and I think that's like, and maybe that's like giving too much credit to like younger people, but I don't know.
Give them all the credit.
Yeah, I'll give them all the credit.
Potential.
I still think they're
potential.
Yeah.
What is potential?
Right.
Potential. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know, but
also,
we
repurpose
babies. Old things in new ways for future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm rambling today, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, don't even apologize. It's great, Matt. I like it when you express yourself, Matt.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, and even growing up, like, black and white was obsolete type of stuff. So if you saw, the Dick Van Dyke Show or something that was in black and white, it was kind of weird.
Or if you were using black and white, you were probably trying to make a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, one of my favorite movies is in black and white, and it's from the 90s. It's called La Haine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Hate.
The Hate, if you translate it.
Who made the film?
The director is Matthew Kassovitz, and then the actors in it are so amazing. Yeah. Like, one of them is this dude, Hubert Coand, who's actually the guy that coined the term parkour by coincidence. Parkour.
What is it, though?
Which is like...
I thought you said hardcore.
It's like people jumping up walls and hardcore parkour.
Hardcore.
Huh.
But yeah, it's and it's about like kind of civil unrest in urban France in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful, and the whole movie's in black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like even like when Young Frankenstein came out in the 70s, like that was like he was trying to make a statement of like throwback to movies of the 30s, like horror movies, to do that and to get that look. It's like weird because like even in the 70s, black and white was not the standard unless you're making art house films. Yeah, it's kind of weird to think about that.
Yeah.
And then now you can make a movie like The Artist where nobody talks. It's in black and white. I don't know. Still not a very good movie. I don't like it, per se. It's gimmicky. It's a gimmicky Oscar movie, but whatever.
When I was a kid, they had a place called the Organ Grinder, and it wasn't that you went there for great pizza or anything, but they would play Charlie Chaplin films on a screen, and I think they tore it down probably in the 90s.
Where was this? Was this in Denver?
Yeah, it was, I want to say around Alameda and maybe Navajo. I can't remember the cross street. But, it was kind of like Casa Bonita, one of those places that wasn't known for great food. It was more, you went there for the entertainment value and...
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they had the, Charlie Chaplin films. And so there are a lot of like black and white throwbacks. The Little Rascals or, Three Stooges that are kind of comical black and white films.
That was like always like my opinion on black and white films as a child. I was always like, I don't want to watch this. This is something my grandma would like.
Yeah.
Whereas like...
Grandma.
Yeah, now that I'm like older than like 8 years old and I can appreciate older things better, I actually do enjoy some black and white movies as long as they're not gimmicky.
Yeah. Well, there's certain genres that I'm just like, no, you guys, come on. But yeah, some of those old cartoons that are just like ridiculously outdated and stereotypical
And racist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are still interesting.
I mean, it's interesting like historically, but I would not like recommend showing those to children.
No.
They get some bad ideas. Yeah, I mean, even like modern Disney, like from the 90s, is pretty bad. But
yeah. It's pretty interesting.
Fun fact about myself, my mom would not let me watch The Little Mermaid growing up because it was sexist, because she had to give up her voice to be with a man. So, thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Raising me right.
My mom just mentioned to me, because she's like, there's actually in the background's all over this movie. There are penises.
Penises everywhere.
She like, mentioned it to me, and I found them. It was like, oh, I see.
Was this a cartoon? Or?
Yeah.
The Disney movie, The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, you're a bit older than us, so like...
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to remember when it hit the,
It's like 93
theaters.
or 94.
Yeah, something like that.
I was
maybe 91.
about
It was
20-ish.
pre-Lion King.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't have been interested in seeing...
No, I mean, the Disney that I grew up with was the Snow White, and then I think they kind of gave up on it for a while, like the old animated kind of films.
Right.
Cell shading.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I think that was probably the next wave. We're going to bring back Little Mermaid. And and I think they had a few 80s attempts. I would say Robin Hood. I remember they did a Disney one. And so I remember they were trying to sort of revive the animated side of Disney maybe at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think initially there was probably, it wasn't taken or something. It wasn't, the pop culture wasn't scooping up on it. They were nostalgic. Well, we like Mickey Mouse. We want to keep Mickey and Snow White and whatever other, the classical kind of Disney stuff. So
Yeah. Well, it's really weird because it's like kind of one of the corporate forces we're fighting is also repurposing things,
Mm-hmm.
And people find new and more intriguing, perhaps not necessarily in a good way, but sometimes in good ways, ways of doing the same thing and kind of getting a little something extra out of it.
I mean, which
is honestly amazing.
For the past 10 years, Hollywood has been really into remaking movies. It's like it's more based on a cash grab. I would actually really appreciate it if they were trying to do something new with the same thing.
Yeah.
But, well, actually, they've kind of moved away from that now. It's like redoing something and then making a fucking expanded universe out of it so they can really grab that cash.
Yeah.
Shove it into their G-strings.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, cause, you're just an observer. I don't get to participate in that system. I don't know about you guys personally, but,
yeah.
Yeah. It's a different life.
I think for me, repurposing a lot of it is that role play with the syringe and just for nostalgic sake, I almost want them to write my script again where I can literally draw the insulin out from a bottle and make a spectacle of it, right on the street, instead of having these, like, real subtle injectable devices like it went out for
I take a shot every 2 weeks actually, but it's risperidone, which is for mental health stuff. But I still have to, like, it comes in a powder and in a vial, and I, like, put in the saline solution and mix it and then draw it up into a syringe and inject it.
So it's a ritual. I mean,
yeah, it is. It's
And for me, I mean, I play the system, the Medicaid system.
Yeah.
Oops. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of weird having this versus old school syringe these days, just because it does look like a pen and all that.
And you get used to it after a while.
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming you've been a diabetic for a while.
Yeah.
And getting used to doing something a certain way and getting that habit and having to change it all of a sudden could be rough.
Yeah. Well, plus, I mean, injecting in public was always pretty taboo, and I'm sensitive to, the people I'm around. There's just points where you go to the bathroom, just because it might cause some issues. And then there's other times I don't give a fuck. Just be at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And then it's like, boom. And that's my attitude for the most part. And that is sort of that public space where you might be doing something that's considered inappropriate.
But why is it inappropriate? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
like it's like your fucking medicine. It's keeping you alive.
Yeah.
People are weird. It's like the breastfeeding in public thing.
Well, it's like you're not actually modeling like bad behavior. Like I could see that argument where they're like, "Oh, I don't," but it's like there's nothing wrong with your kid knowing how to inject a drug.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like your kid is a type 1 diabetic. Like, it's just it's just funny. Like, what are you afraid of? This is a new tech. It's not a new technology. It's something that's tried and tested. And it's not like it's publicly dangerous unless you're like...
Well, I kind of do enjoy going in that sleazy, like, restroom stall and just like a junkie does.
Just for the feel, yeah. Yeah.
And then, it is kind of funny because in the dumpster diving, you inevitably come across everything, Oh, there's a condom, and a lot of stuff that is kind of disgusting. And with that, if I come across a syringe, usually it's the junkie's aftermath. And so that's sort of, to me, exciting in a way. To find those things in the garbage, but it's a dangerous thing if you get stuck,
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, I mean, I don't even know if I need to inform people on this, but you don't know where that's been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't swim in the Platte, children.
Yeah.
Yeah. You literally could get Hep C or HIV just by an accidental syringe stick. So. And on the topic of sharps, just because it's there is a disposal box actually at about Colfax and Spear on the Cherry Creek bike path.
Yeah.
Right over there by that King Soopers. And they have a needle exchange to that King Soopers last time I checked, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my friends that had an issue with heroin was the guy that pointed it out to me at the time, and it really was an eye-opener. I was actually surprised. I tell people that Denver's not a liberal city. I'm like, no, this isn't a liberal city at all.
Yeah.
And
it's a neoliberal city, so not a liberal city.
But to sort of to kind of play devil's advocate, I guess. But with that, when my friend pointed out the needle exchange, I was actually impressed. I was like, yay, Denver! And it was actually due to harm reduction, a needle exchange program in Denver. So at the time, I mean, I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
But I was happy to see it, you know. It's something that kind of gives you pause. You could imagine the married couple with the stroller going by, and they're like, oh, wow, what are we going to do later on? I'm going to go to yoga, and, you know, we're planning our pregnancy, and oh, there's a needle exchange. Or there's a sharps box, rather. Well, what do you think, honey?
Yeah.
That's like the most interesting thing about it is with all these like new money millennial yuppies moving to Denver, there's like a whole side of Denver that they just don't fucking know about. Mm-hmm. Like they go about their daily lives and they're people like 25, 30 driving their BMWs and stuff, but they don't know about the other stuff that's going on in Denver. You know, they're into their like little like $16 cocktails at Williams and Graham and not really like noticing about like people like shoot dope in this city. Like that's a thing. Like and they aren't aware of it. They just kind of walk by it and it doesn't really cross their minds, I don't think.
Well, it's like because we have a tendency, I guess, in our culture to kind of dehumanize that behavior, you know? Right. Like those aren't people. Those are the act itself, not the person doing the act. Which, you know, I get why there's a whole business in that, you know? Like,
Well, on the film thing, like, I definitely have always been interested in heroin, and it has hit me on a very personal level at times through people I've known. And so with that, my friend and I did make a point of going to harm reduction, and we interviewed one of the staff members there, and you know, she gave a very candid interview on needle exchange, and I asked point blank at one point about if diabetics had come their way, and they had, you know, whether they were type 1 or 2, we don't know, but they were in need of syringes, and that's all that they could provide for them there. But the issue did come up, and so with that, you know, needle users are needle users, you know. And
right. Not everybody that uses needles is a junkie. And not everybody that uses the needle exchange is a junkie.
Yeah.
Like, that can benefit more than... And, like, needles cost, like, what, 50 cents?
They're not expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of, like, my healthcare, I know that the syringes are probably the least expensive element of the whole equation.
Right.
So... And then they are legal. You know, you could go to a Walgreens and, oh, I need syringes, and you can purchase them, which makes sense and everything. And I believe you, at this stage, can't get ticketed if you leave that Walgreens. That was the issue in the past, where you could legally get ticketed for having a syringe on you. Without
which is crazy.
Yeah. But we got off kind of the topic of it.
Oh, yeah, sorry, no, I don't.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's like, I actually am absolutely fine with this conversation, you know? I think it's a good one to have.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things that people aren't particularly aware of, that I think, especially if we're sharing experiences, you know? It's part of our shared experience, you know? This is part of modern life.
Yeah.
So, I absolutely do not mind acknowledging it. So don't worry. But yeah, I really only have like one final question, and then we're gonna sort of start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
What do you see right now? And we've probably talked about this already. It's probably come up. What do you see right now being reused? That, like, it's not something you directly do or have contact with that you think is pretty cool? And this is, again, an open question to everybody. And then just while we have a little time, I guess, I had one other little show that I wanted to plug. It's coming up on July 14th. It's the Thurgy Comp Volume 1 release. I guess you could describe it as an album release, but it's really collaborative between musicians and artists. And it'll be again on July 14th at the Europa Coffee House. And I'm pretty sure it starts around 6. And yeah.
Yeah, in response to that question, I miss seeing the shopping carts of lore. Back when anybody could oh man, I use this as my personal cargo thing, and it didn't mean you were homeless necessarily, but you would see the shopping carts getting reused. And I remember before they had the lock mechanisms on them, they could go pretty far. It was your mobile home at times. But with that, probably 20 years back, I remember there was a guy that literally was paid to go through the alleys and round up the shopping carts, and it was kind of hilarious because that was job security for him. But you would definitely see him with a truck and trailer, just boom, and if there happened to be a cart in the alley, I mean, he was like this animal of a man. He'd just get out of the truck and he didn't even seem to mind. He would just sort of, if I remember right, he would physically just lift the cart up and strap it to the trailer and kind of move on. And I'm guessing Albertsons and King Soopers and Safeway all contracted him out to do that and everything. But it was hilarious because those carts, sometimes they would just serve that purpose and boom, get abandoned.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny. And then what do you do if some guy's got a car? Well, that's ours. That belongs to Albertsons. We're taking it from you.
We're repurposing this cart.
And everything you have on there, you better, So I'm being evicted from my mobile home. God damn it.
Well,
Not today.
I'm really happy I started my piece early because I just finished it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's perfect timing, honestly. 'Cause
Yeah.
this is kind of the end. And Frank, this is my little tradition. You're not obligated to, but if you want, you can come back next week.
Yeah.
Or the next week we're recording. And you can be a co-host, kind of like how Matt is.
Yeah.
And so you can hang out with another artist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm likely going to do it, so.
Yeah, most definitely. And you're absolutely welcome. I've loved having you on, man.
Yeah,
it's been good to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, vice versa. Cool. I watched the initial DoodleCast. So I kind of have an insider into what you've been doing.
Yeah, nice.
In a creepy kind of...
hey, we like it. Don't worry.
Bridge troll.
Yeah.
Yeah, before I do our little outro plugs, do you got anything coming up or anything you want to plug?
Not really. It's been... I'm going to go to Art Basel, which will be in Miami. I'm just kind of stoked to do that for the second year going.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Yeah. And it's a shorty, it won't be till December. But anybody that has a chance to go to something like that, it's kind of, especially as an outsider, if you've never been, it's pretty crazy. It's a shit show. So.
Wait, a bunch of artists in one place?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
It's international too, so it's, you get kind of swept into the whole thing.
That's cool.
You're not going to stand out there, which is kind of nice. Anyhow.
Well, yeah. Once again, thanks for coming, guys. This has been a really great show. I've enjoyed talking with you. This is the DoodleCast. I want to shout out WeAreDenver. That's who we are here with. We also have Meet in the Street coming up. We'll have a little doodle booth. You can catch me running sound. We got lots of good bands on the Champa stage. It'll be great. And actually, you can probably catch Frank downtown, too.
Yeah, and Meet in the Street's on the mall, right?
Yeah, we're right on Champa.
I think they started that last year, so,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on in Denver, for sure, for visual artists, musicians, and there's a lot of stuff you just got to make, with your own... throwing yourself out there.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. You can definitely check out Frank. He's petty cabin down there, so that's happening too.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, I don't hate that. It's a good hustle. So. And then the last shout out for the afternoon is, of course, this lovely studio we're in. This is Ghost House Denver. Props to Rich and Miles.
Also, Samson running tech for us. We love you guys. And this has been the DoodleCast. Everybody have a groovy day.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.